In this lecture, we're going to use two more packages to improve our application security, and this time to perform data sanitization. So data sanitization basically means to clean all the data that comes into the application from malicious code. Okay, so code that is trying to attack our application. Okay, and in this case, we're trying to defend against two attacks. So let's write that down, and we will do it, let's say, right here after the body parser. Okay, so this middleware here reads the data into request.body, and then only after that we can actually clean that data, right? And so this is a perfect place for doing the data sanitization. So we will do data sanitization against NoSQL query injection and also data sanitization against cross-site scripting attacks. And now, before doing anything else, let me show you why it is so extremely important to defend against this type of attack. Okay, and so we will now simulate a NoSQL query injection, and I hope that you will be as shocked as I was when I first discovered how powerful this can be. So let's now head over to Postman here and try to log in as someone even without knowing their email address. All right, so basically, simply given a password, so let's say this one here, we will be able to log in, but even without knowing the email address. Okay, and so again, we're going to do that by simulating a NoSQL query injection. And the easiest way of doing it goes like this. So instead of specifying a real email, we specify this query basically. So we use the MongoDB greater than operator and set it equal to nothing. Okay, and now watch what happens. And indeed, we are now logged in as the admin. So you see, we even got our access token. And yeah, we're really now logged in, and this completely blows my mind. Okay, so again, without knowing the email address, only the password, we were able to log in. And believe me, it's not really difficult to find a bunch of really popular passwords that are used on every application. Okay, and so this kind of attacks is what we need to protect against. All right, so this here works basically because this will always be true. Okay, so let's actually also see that in Compass. So I'm copying it, or actually let's copy all of this. Okay, and then try to filter by this exact same thing. Now we're just missing the curly braces, but now we actually get a valid query. And so let's hit find, and indeed, this returns all of the users. So basically all the users match this query. All right, and so again, it is because this here is always true. And so that will then select all the usernames. Okay, and so that malicious query injection here allowed us to log in only knowing this password. All right, so to protect ourselves against this, let's install another middleware. And this one is called Express Mongo Sanitize. And since we're here, let's also go ahead and install the other one that we're going to need a bit later in this video, which is called simply XSS. Or actually, it's not. Actually, that was not correct. It's called XSS Clean. Okay, so we need to go ahead and uninstall the other one. npm uninstall XSS. And so let's take a look at our package.json. And indeed, it's gone. So again, XS clean is the one that we want to use. All right. But anyway, first, let's talk about the NoSQL query injection again. So all we're going to use is, and of course, we need to first require it. All right. So const Mongo sanitize equals require express Mongo sanitize. And again, VS Code here helps me. And since we're here, let's also require the next one. So the variable I'm requiring is called XSS. And then the name of the module is XSS clean. Okay, so let's now use this Mongo sanitize here, right here. So Mongo sanitize is a function that we will call, which will then return a middleware function, which we can then use. And this is enough to prevent us against the kind of attack that we just saw before. So what this middleware does is to look at the request body, the request query string, and also at request.params, and then it will basically filter out all of the $signs and dots. Okay, because that's how MongoDB operators are written. And by removing that, well, these operators are then no longer gonna work. So let's try that again. So again, it will remove all of these like $signs. Okay, so if I do this now, then indeed we get this error and we can no longer use this trick here, so this query injection attack, to log in. So that fixes the first problem. But now let's use that other middleware that we also just required before. So app.use and then XSS. All right, and so this will then clean any user input from malicious HTML code, basically. So imagine that an attacker would try to insert some malicious HTML code with some JavaScript code attached to it. And so if that would then later be injected into our HTML site, it could really create some damage then. And so using this middleware, we prevent that basically by converting all these HTML symbols. Okay, now as I said before, the Mongoose validation itself is actually already a very good protection against XSS, right? Because it won't really allow any crazy stuff to go into our database as long as we use it correctly. So whenever you can, just add some validation to your Mongo schemas, and that should then mostly protect you from cross-site scripting, at least on the server side. So let's just very quickly test this middleware here as well. So what I'm going to do is to simply create a new user, and let's call it tester here or something like that. The password is all right. And here in the name, let's add some HTML code. So a div with the ID of bad code, okay. All right, so let's try that now. And so you see that the XSS module that we used actually converted these HTML symbols here, so basically mostly this one, into this HTML entity here. All right, so let's just quickly delete this guy. We don't need him at all. Okay, so yeah, that is our quick and easy protection against some of these attacks using data sanitization. Also remember that the validator function library that we used before also has a couple of cool sanitization functions in it. And so we could also manually build some middleware using these. But again, that's not really necessary because Mongoose already enforces a strict schema. And so then if it encounters something weird, it will then throw an error, and yeah, that's already a pretty good protection. So we're really almost done with the security part. All we need to do in the next video is to prevent parameter pollution.